There are places in America where the locals don't just warn you to stay away. They'll tell you flat out, don't come here. Don't even think about it. These aren't just rough neighborhoods or tourist traps. These are towns, stretches of road, and entire regions where the stories are darker, the risks are real, and the welcome mat is long gone. If you're over 55, you probably remember when a road trip meant stopping anywhere for pie and coffee. But in these places, the pie is cold, the coffee is burnt, and the only thing you'll get from the locals is a look that says, keep moving. Like this video if you've ever taken a wrong turn and felt your gut tell you to turn around. Subscribe because America's most interesting places aren't always the ones you want to visit, and this channel is your guide to the real stories behind the warnings. Let's be honest, America is full of beautiful places, friendly towns, and hidden gems, but it's also got its share of places where even the locals say, don't stop here. Sometimes it's crime, sometimes it's pollution, sometimes it's just a feeling that something isn't right. This isn't a list of dangerous cities you'll find in every clickbait article. We're talking about places with real stories, towns with reputations so bad that even the people who live there will tell you to keep driving. Some are infamous for crime, others are environmental disasters. A few are just so strange or unwelcoming that you'll wish you'd listen to the warnings. For each place, I'll give you the real history, the local warnings, and what it's actually like if you ignore the advice and show up anyway. I'll also give you practical context. What's changed, what's still there, and what you need to know if you ever find yourself passing through. Let's get started. 10. Gary, Indiana, the city that industry left behind. If you grew up in the Midwest, you know Gary's reputation. Once a booming steel town, Gary is now a symbol of what happens when industry leaves and nothing replaces it. The city's population has dropped from nearly 180,000 in the 1960s to under 70,000 today. What's left is a landscape of abandoned factories, empty houses, and a crime rate that's among the highest in the country. Documented history. Gary was founded in 1906 by U.S. Steel and was once called the Magic City. For decades, it was a place where a working man could buy a house, raise a family, and send his kids to college. But as steel jobs disappeared, so did the people. Today, entire neighborhoods are boarded up, and the city struggles with poverty, unemployment, and violent crime. Local warnings. Ask anyone from Northwest Indiana, and they'll tell you, don't stop in Gary, don't get gas, don't even slow down. The city's homicide rate is consistently among the highest in the nation. Carjackings, robberies, and assaults are common, especially after dark. Even the police will tell you to keep your windows up and your doors locked. Why locals say to avoid it. It's not just the crime, it's the feeling of abandonment. The downtown is a ghost town. The schools are struggling, and even the police will tell you to keep your windows up and your doors locked. There are a few pockets of life, churches, small businesses, and people trying to make a difference, but the overall vibe is one of caution and loss. What it's like if you visit. If you drive through Gary, you'll see block after block of empty houses, broken windows, and overgrown lots. The steel mills still operate, but the city feels hollowed out. There are a few pockets of life, churches, small businesses, and people trying to make a difference, but the overall vibe is one of caution and loss. Reality check, Gary is trying to rebuild, but it's a long road. If you have no reason to be there, locals say you're better off staying on the highway. Sensory, the smell of rust and weeds, the sound of trains in the distance, and the sight of boarded up windows as far as you can see. Anecdote. A retired trucker told me, I used to stop for coffee in Gary in the 70s. Now I don't even slow down. It's not worth the risk. Surprising fact, Gary's once Grand Union Station, built in 1910, is now abandoned and covered in graffiti, a symbol of the city's decline. Practical note, if you must pass through, stick to the interstate, don't stop for gas, and avoid driving at night. 9. Camden, New Jersey, the city across the river. Camden sits just across the Delaware River from Philadelphia, but it might as well be a world away. Once a thriving industrial city, Camden is now infamous for its poverty, crime, and abandoned buildings. The city's population has dropped by half since the 1950s, and what's left is a place where even the locals warn you not to linger. Documented history. Camden was once home to RCA Victor, Campbell's Soup, and a bustling waterfront. But as factories closed, the city fell into decline. Today, Camden is known for its high crime rate, struggling schools, and a downtown that's more empty lots than businesses. Local warnings. Ask anyone from South Jersey, and they'll tell you, don't stop in Camden, don't get out of your car, don't even look lost. The city's violent crime rate is among the highest in the country, and carjackings are a real risk. Why locals say to avoid it. It's not just the crime, it's the sense of hopelessness. The city has tried to revitalize, but progress is slow. Even the police have struggled to keep up, and many neighborhoods are effectively off limits to outsiders. What it's like if you visit. If you drive through Camden, you'll see abandoned factories, empty lots, and houses with bars on the windows. There are a few bright spots, a new waterfront park, a minor league baseball stadium, but the overall feeling is one of caution. Reality check. Camden is making efforts to improve, but it's still a place where locals say you should keep moving unless you have a good reason to be there. Sensory. The smell of river mud and exhaust, the sound of sirens, and the sight of graffiti on every surface. Anecdote. A local cab driver told me, I don't pick up fares in Camden after dark. Too many stories, too many close calls. Surprising fact, Camden's Adventure Aquarium is one of the best on the East Coast, but even locals say to park in the guarded lot and leave before dark. Practical note, if you must visit, stick to the waterfront attractions, don't wander, and keep your car locked. 8. Centralia, Pennsylvania, the town that's still burning. Centralia is a ghost town, and for good reason. In 1962, a coal seam fire started beneath the town and has been burning ever since. The fire forced the evacuation of nearly all residents, and today, only a handful of people remain. The ground is unstable, the air can be toxic, and the government has closed most of the roads. Documented history, Centralia was once a thriving mining town with over 1,000 residents. But as the underground fire spread, homes began to collapse, and dangerous gases leaked into basements. The government declared the town uninhabitable in the 1980s, and most buildings were demolished. Local warnings. Locals from nearby towns will tell you, don't go to Centralia. The ground isn't safe, and there's nothing left to see. The fire still burns underground, and sinkholes can open up without warning. Why locals say to avoid it. It's not just the danger, it's the sense of loss. Centralia is a reminder of what happens when industry and nature collide, and nature wins. What it's like if you visit, and if you drive through Centralia, you'll see empty streets, overgrown lots, and the occasional plume of smoke rising from the ground. The famous graffiti highway was closed and covered with dirt in 2020, but some people still sneak in to see what's left. Reality check. Centralia is not a tourist attraction, it's a disaster site. If you visit, you're risking your safety and breaking the law if you trespass on closed roads. Sensory. The smell of sulfur, the sight of cracked pavement, and the eerie silence of a town that's been erased. Anecdote. A local firefighter told me, we still get calls from people who fall through the ground. It's not a joke, stay away. Surprising fact, according to the USGS, the fire could burn for another 250 years. Practical note, if you must see it, stay on public roads, don't walk on the old highway, and don't bring kids or pets. 7. East St. Louis, Illinois, the city that time forgot. East St. Louis sits across the river from St. Louis, Missouri, and has a reputation that's hard to shake. Once a booming industrial city, it's now known for poverty, crime, and decay. The population has dropped from over 80,000 in 1950 to under 25,000 today. Documented history. East St. Louis was once a center for manufacturing and railroads, but as jobs disappeared, so did the people. The city has struggled with corruption, bankruptcy, and some of the highest crime rates in the country. Local warnings. Ask anyone from the St. Louis area, and they'll tell you, don't stop in East St. Louis, don't get gas, don't even slow down. The city's violent crime rate is among the highest in the nation, and carjackings are a real risk. Why locals say to avoid it. It's not just the crime, it's the sense of abandonment. The downtown is a ghost town, the schools are struggling, and even the police will tell you to keep your windows up and your doors locked. What it's like if you visit. If you drive through East St. Louis, you'll see block after block of empty houses, broken windows, and overgrown lots. There are a few pockets of life, churches, small businesses, and people trying to make a difference. But but the overall vibe is one of caution and loss. Reality check. East St. Louis is trying to rebuild, but it's a long road. If you have no reason to be there, locals say you're better off staying on the highway. Sensory. The smell of river mud and weeds, the sound of trains in the distance, and the sight of boarded up windows as far as you can see. Anecdote. A retired police officer told me, "I worked here for 30 years. I wouldn't let my own kids drive through after dark." Surprising fact, the city's once grand national stockyards, which processed more livestock than anywhere else in the world, are now mostly abandoned. Practical note, if you must pass through, stick to the interstate, don't stop for gas, and avoid driving at night. 6. Flint, Michigan, the water crisis city. If you remember when Flint was the place to buy a Chevy, you'll be shocked at what's happened since. The factories are mostly gone, and the water crisis changed everything. Even though the pipes have been replaced, trust is still hard to come by. Documented history. Flint was the birthplace of General Motors and once had a population of nearly 200,000, but as auto jobs disappeared, so did the people. In 2014, the city switched its water supply to the Flint River, leading to lead contamination and a public health emergency. Since 2021, most of the lead pipes have been replaced, but the scars remain. Local warnings. Ask anyone from Michigan and they'll tell you, don't drink the water, don't move to Flint. The water crisis has improved, but trust is still low, and infrastructure problems remain. While locals say to avoid it, it's not just the water. Flint has high crime rates, abandoned neighborhoods, and a sense of frustration that's hard to shake. The city is trying to rebuild, but progress is slow. What it's like if you visit. If you drive through Flint, you'll see empty factories, boarded up houses, and the scars of a city that's been through too much. There are efforts to revitalize downtown, but the problems run deep. Reality check. Flint is not a tourist destination. If you have family or business there, be careful. Otherwise, locals say you're better off visiting somewhere else. Sensory. The smell of old factories, the sight of water bottles stacked in homes, and the feeling of a city still waiting for relief. Anecdote. A local nurse told me, "We still don't trust the water. I buy bottled for everything. It's just not worth the risk." Surprising fact, Flint's water is now tested more frequently than almost any city in America, but many residents still use bottled water for drinking and cooking. Practical note, if you must visit, bring bottled water, stay in well-reviewed hotels, and avoid walking alone at night. 5. Gallup, New Mexico, the town with a warning. If you drove Route 66 in 1975, you'd have stopped in Gallup for gas and turquoise jewelry. Today, the art scene is still alive, but so are the warnings. Locals say don't walk alone at night and don't leave valuables in your car. The tension between vibrant culture and real risk is what makes Gallup both fascinating and, for some, a place to avoid. Documented history. Gallup has long been a crossroads for travelers, traders, and railroad workers. The town has a rich Native American heritage with dozens of trading posts and galleries. It's also a hub for the Navajo Nation and Zuni Pueblo. Local warnings. Ask anyone from northern New Mexico, and they'll tell you, don't walk around Gallup at night. Don't leave valuables in your car. The town has a high rate of violent crime, especially in certain neighborhoods. Why locals say to avoid it, it's not just the crime, it's the sense of unpredictability. Fights break out in bars, car break-ins are common, and the police are stretched thin, but it's also a place where art, culture, and tradition are alive. What it's like if you visit. If you stop in Gallup, you'll find beautiful art, friendly people, and a strong sense of culture. But you'll also notice the bars on windows, the security cameras, and the warnings from hotel staff to stay inside after dark. Reality check. Gallup is worth a visit for the art and culture, but be careful. Stick to main streets, avoid walking alone at night, and don't flash valuables. Sensory. The smell of sage and dust, the sound of trains, and the sight of neon signs flickering on Route 66. Anecdote. A local artist told me, Gallup is beautiful, but you have to know where to go and when to go. After dark, it's a different place. Surprising fact, Gallup hosts one of the largest Native American art markets in the country every August, the Intertribal Indian Ceremonial. Practical note, if you visit, enjoy the art and culture, but be street smart and don't wander after dark. 4. Pine Ridge, South Dakota, the Forgotten Reservation. Pine Ridge is the heart of the Oglala Lakota Sioux Reservation, and it's one of the poorest places in America. The poverty here is staggering, and the challenges are real. Documented history. Pine Ridge has a long, tragic history from the Wounded Knee Massacre to decades of broken promises. The reservation struggles with unemployment, addiction, and some of the lowest life expectancy rates in the country. Local warnings. Ask anyone from South Dakota and they'll tell you, don't go to Pine Ridge unless you have a reason. Don't wander off the main roads. The area is not set up for tourists, and outsiders are often viewed with suspicion. Why locals say to avoid it? It's not just the poverty, it's the sense of being an outsider in a place with deep wounds. The reservation is a community, not a tourist attraction. What it's like if you visit. If you drive through Pine Ridge, you'll see rundown homes, abandoned cars, and a sense of struggle. There are beautiful landscapes and strong people, but the challenges are overwhelming. Reality check. Pine Ridge is not a place for casual visitors. If you're there to help or have family, you'll be welcomed. Otherwise, respect the community's privacy. Sensory. The smell of sagebrush, the sight of endless plains, and the feeling of being far from everything. Anecdote. A local teacher told me, "We're proud of our culture, but we don't need tourists taking pictures of our pain." Surprising fact, Pine Ridge has a life expectancy lower than many developing countries, around 66 years for men. Practical note, if you visit, go with a purpose, volunteering, family, or business. Don't treat it as a sightseeing stop. 3. Love Canal, New York, the toxic neighborhood. Love Canal is a neighborhood in Niagara Falls that became infamous in the 1970s for toxic waste buried beneath homes and schools. The disaster led to the evacuation of hundreds of families and a national reckoning over environmental safety. Documented history. In the 1940s and 1950s, chemical waste was dumped in the area. By the 1970s, residents began reporting health problems, and the government eventually declared the neighborhood uninhabitable. Local warnings. Ask anyone from Western New York and they'll tell you, don't go to Love Canal. There's nothing left. The area is fenced off and most of the homes have been demolished. Why locals say to avoid it, it's not just the pollution, it's the sense of loss. Love Canal is a reminder of what happens when industry and government fail to protect people. What it's like if you visit. If you drive by Love Canal, you'll see empty lots, warning signs, and the scars of a neighborhood that was erased. The area is still monitored for contamination. Reality check. Love Canal is not a tourist attraction. It's a cautionary tale. If you visit, stay outside the fences and respect the signs. Sensory. The smell of chemicals, the sight of empty streets, and the feeling of standing in a place that should never have existed. Anecdote. A former resident told me, "We lost our homes, our neighbors, our community. There's nothing left but memories and warnings." Surprising fact, the Love Canal disaster led directly to the creation of the EPA's Superfund program. Practical note, don't trespass. The area is still monitored and the EPA keeps a close eye on it. 2. Barrow, Utqiaġvik, Alaska, the town at the end of the world. Barrow, now officially known as Utqiaġvik, is the northernmost city in the United States. It's a place of stunning beauty and brutal isolation. Documented history. Barrow has been inhabited for over 1,500 years by the Inupiat people. The town is famous for its 65 days of darkness in winter and 80 days of sunlight in summer. Local warnings. Ask anyone from Alaska, and they'll tell you, don't go to Barrow unless you're prepared. The weather is extreme, the cost of living is sky high, and the isolation is real. Why locals say to avoid it, it's not just the cold, it's the sense of being at the end of the world. Supplies are flown in, and prices are double or triple what you'd pay elsewhere. The darkness in winter can be overwhelming. What it's like if you visit. If you fly into Barrow, you'll see endless tundra, ice, and the Arctic Ocean. The town is friendly, but outsiders stand out. The cold is bone deep, and the wind never stops. Reality check. Barrow is not a vacation spot. If you're not prepared for the cold, the dark, and the cost, you'll regret the trip. Sensory. The sting of Arctic wind, the crunch of snow underfoot, and the endless gray of a winter sky. Anecdote. A visiting nurse told me, "I've never felt so far from everything. The people are wonderful, but the isolation is real." Surprising fact, Utqiaġvik is one of the only places in America where you can see polar bears from town. Practical note, if you visit, bring everything you need and be prepared for sticker shock at the grocery store. 1. Skid Row, Los Angeles, California, the neighborhood with no way out. Skid Row is not a town, but it's a place every Angelino knows to avoid. It's a 50-block area in downtown Los Angeles that's home to one of the largest homeless populations in the country. Documented history, Skid Row has been a gathering place for the homeless since the late 19th century. Today it's a city within a city with thousands of people living in tents, shelters, and on the streets. Local warnings: ask anyone from LA and they'll tell you, don't go to Skid Row, don't drive through at night, don't stop for anything. The area is known for crime, drug use, and violence. Why locals say to avoid it: it's not just the danger, it's the sense of hopelessness. Skid Row is a humanitarian crisis, and the city has struggled for decades to find a solution. What it's like if you drive through Skid Row, you'll see tents, trash, and people struggling to survive. The smell is overwhelming, and the sense of desperation is palpable. Reality check: Skid Row is not a tourist attraction. If you want to help, donate to a local shelter. Otherwise, stay away. Sensory: the smell of garbage and urine, the sound of sirens, and the sight of people who have nowhere else to go. Anecdote: a local business owner told me, "I've seen people lose everything here. It's not a place for sightseeing." Surprising fact: Skid Row is home to more than 60,000 people at times, making it one of the largest homeless encampments in the world. Practical note: if you must pass through, keep your windows up, doors locked, and don't stop for anything. Honorable mention: Letchworth Village, the abandoned institution. Letchworth Village was a residential institution for people with developmental disabilities, opened in 1911 and closed in 1996. At its peak, it housed over 4,000 residents. The campus is now abandoned, with dozens of crumbling buildings, overgrown paths, and a cemetery with hundreds of unmarked graves. The institution was the subject of exposés in the 1970s and 1980s, revealing neglect and abuse. Urban explorers and locals claim the grounds are haunted by former residents. Stories include unexplained voices, cold spots, and the feeling of being watched. Some say the old hospital building is especially active, with reports of flickering lights and doors slamming on their own. Much of Letchworth Village is off limits and patrolled. Trespassing is illegal. If you visit, stick to public areas and be respectful. This is a place of real tragedy. Surprising fact: the Letchworth Village Cemetery has hundreds of graves marked only by numbers, not names. A stark reminder of how society once treated its most vulnerable. How to visit safely. If you're planning to visit any of these places, here's what you need to know. Be respectful. These are real communities, not just spooky backdrops. Stick to public areas. Many of the creepiest sites are private property. Ask before you photograph. Locals are used to visitors, but they value their privacy. Don't trespass. It's not worth a night in the local jail. If you're just passing through, keep your windows up and your wits about you. These are the 10 places in America you should never visit, at least according to the people who live there. From abandoned towns to neighborhoods struggling with poverty and crime, these places prove that not every part of America is a hidden gem. Some are just hidden for a reason, but here's what you need to understand. These places are not for everyone. You're trading comfort and safety for a story, and sometimes the story isn't worth the risks. Like this video if you remember when road trips meant adventure, not anxiety. Subscribe because these overlooked places still exist, and this channel shows you where they are and why you might want to keep driving. Now, if you want to see more of America's strangest places, click on this video over here where I break down the weirdest small towns in the country. I'll see you in the next one.